Entering the Pat Mayo Experience.
Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Pat Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. Week 8, rankings, starts, sits, sleepers. Hit the description. You can find all of the rankings lists. They get updated every single morning throughout the week. The injury cheat sheet is down there as well. That gets updated every single day, and you can use the time codes to jump around if you want to and head to a certain position of interest for you, the people out there, the competitive people still in our leagues. I talked about this every single year, that you get to a certain point of the season and you see the engagement in the show go dip down a little bit. Now, I would like to promise every single person who watches the show from week 1 on that they're going to be undefeated in their leagues through 7 weeks, but that is just simply not going to be the case. So if you're watching, that means you're still probably doing pretty well, so congratulations to you. Now you should roll that forward, playing the DraftKings Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League. That link is now open. That is also down in the description right now. If you want to get ahead of the game and use some projections based on what you think is going to happen, easy stuff. RunTheSims.com/Mayo. Get you that discount on any level. Create your own, use theirs, use all the tools, whatever it may be. But once again, that's RunTheSims.com/Mayo. Jake Ciely, theathletic.com. Sir, we have a new smorgasbord of running backs to talk about all of a sudden.
We do. Get on the Gus Bus train there. Well, Gus Bus, there's no train. It's just the bus. But yes, we do have a bunch. And hopefully everybody's been listening to you and me for a couple of weeks on the Stash the Gus Bus, because you love them more than I do. You do love them more than I do every single year. And hopefully people are loving the fact that they have played. Although it was a very interesting turn. There's like the people that went, oh my God, I've been stashing Michael Carter. This is great. Oh my God, I thought it was great. And now I have James Robinson back. It sucks. Like, it just immediately switched.
We'll jump into the rankings in a second, but I do want to start there with Michael Carter. I have him number 14 this week against the Patriots. I think that we're going to see a situation a little bit like Christian McCaffrey last week, where it might be a three-way split because Ty Johnson will probably get involved as well. I still have Michael Carter for this week projected for around 60-65% of the snaps.
Yeah, I would do the same. I tweeted that out depending on you're listening to this during Monday Night Football. How about that? I said the same thing that you did, is that because it's the first week, because we've seen Latavius Murray when he got picked up by the Broncos, he wasn't even playing that first week. We saw Christian McCaffrey, as you mentioned. The only positive here for James Robinson is the beginning of the week. So he has an entire week, but I still don't think it's what we expect going forward, which I would expect them to be very much like what we saw early this year with Breece Hall before it took off, where it's 50-50, 55-45, and Michael Carter stays in his role. It just grows from what it was with Breece Hall. It grows to what it was back to the beginning of the year, and James Robinson's kind of back to his Jacksonville role. But as what you said, I don't expect it to be that kind of a split this week.
So going forward, let's try to make a projection here. I think that Michael Carter is the more valuable back to have in New York over James Robinson.
I don't know if I agree, but I don't know if it's going to be a large gap. That offensive line took a hit this past week. I forget the guy's name off the top of my head. Young guy. He was
Tucavera.
Yes, that's why I'm not even going to waste my time with that one. So I think that the only one I could always say back in the day was Tim Biakabatua. I don't know why you just could always say that one.
Tim Biakabatuka. Batuka.
Yeah. Did I say? I see. I even said it wrong then. So.
Yeah, I see. I know. I know that Tim Biakabatuka is Canadian, so he was shoved down our throats.
Oh, there you go. What was the tight end Humanamana Hui or whatever it was?
Chris Mufatu Malafala is the guy that you're thinking of.
That's no. Humanamana Hui too. Is that one? That's a whole other one.
Yeah. The Samoan names are tough.
They are. So anyway, I do think that it could be what do you expect, which is going to be hard to predict for the Jets. Like, if we actually expect them to control a game and be favored, which how many times are we really going to expect that? I would say a little bit more James Robinson.
They have like the easiest schedule in the league.
I know, but it's still the Jets. It's still. Here's the thing. It's.
Go ahead.
It's not their defense. It's not their defense. It's not their wide receiver weapons. It's not even their offensive line, even with that loss. They have what Brendan Funston said on the Athletic podcast with me yesterday. They have a Zach Wilson problem. That's the issue. They have a Zach Wilson problem. And until that changes, or they go back to Joe Flacco and be like, hey, look, let's screw around. Stop screwing around. We actually have playoff aspirations, as Zach Wilson's not helping us, which I just don't think they will. But Maybe. I mean, we've seen some quarterback changes this year, which is a little surprising. But until that's the case, I don't know how many games we can sit here and say, you know what, the Jets definitively are a good team. Are we really expecting them to control even with that schedule? So that's what, anyway, point being is if we could predict that, I would still give James Robinson a slight edge. He's still, even last week when he got 0, he was still out there inside the 10, inside the 5, and inside the 3 as much or more than ETN. He just didn't get the touches, and Trevor Lawrence just sniped another one from him. So I would say Carter more often, likely the more valuable, but it wouldn't shock me if you have a few weeks where James Robinson gets more of the work and they kind of keep Michael Carter in similar to, you know what we just saw from the Bears and Herbert. You know, they could both be valuable. I say the higher ceilings with Herbert, but the more consistent might be James Robinson.
See, I just look at what James Robinson was up to the past 3 weeks, and yeah, his usage was down a little bit, but he just looked significantly worse than he had for the first 3 weeks of the season. And it's funny because we were talking about the Cam Akers-James Robinson comparison. I said the Jets should have just, asked the Rams, like, hey, can we just have Cam Akers and see how that works? You just give him to him for free. I know you don't want anything for him at this point. Just two guys coming off these Achilles injuries, and Akers had looked so bad and then progressively got a little bit better. Then he got in the doghouse, and that was the end of him, running behind a lack of offensive line in Los Angeles. Then you have James Robinson coming off the Achilles in a shorter time span. Looks great through 3 weeks, and then every single week the touches go down, the burst goes down, the broken tackles go down. So I'm just worried, not necessarily that he doesn't hold up, it's just that he's not going to be very effective, where Michael Carter lost his job to Breece Hall, who, hell, I mean, he looked, Cuss said he was a top 5 running back in football. I mean, he's a Jets fan, but I mean, we went through the list. He's probably like the 8th or 9th best running back in football. Like, that's tough. James Robinson isn't that. So I do think that it will be Michael Carter, who's used in the receiving game more so than James Robinson, because that was still a bit of a role that he had anyway, especially earlier in the season when we saw a bit of the split. And I do think he plays like 55-60% of the snaps. It'll all depend on who touches that ball from the 3-yard line. But I'm not concerned about them not running the ball because they're winning in games or they're losing in games, because they just legit, you hit on it, they don't want to throw the ball and they can't throw the ball, so they're going to run.
And that's the thing. So I got to pull this up. I tweeted this out on Monday, so just make it easier for everybody out there. And I look back at last year, and I'm a Michael Carter fan, but Michael Carter 2021 with at least 50% of the snaps. He had 15.6 touches per game in those. But the interesting thing was 111 for 434 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. He didn't have any touchdowns when he didn't have at least 50% of the snaps. 3.9 yards per carry and 11.8 fantasy points per game, which only would rank him like RB20. When he was under 50%, he was 41 for 239, no touchdowns, only 5.8 yards, or only 6 points per game, but 5.8 yards per carry. Now, I'm not saying he's going to average fewer than 4 yards per carry for the entire rest of the season if he's given 50% plus of the workload, and if they gave him less, he would definitively get up to almost 6 yards a carry. I'm just saying that's interesting to see last year, that kind of disparity where, you're talking about a 70% jump when he's used in limited fashion on the running game. And I'm only presenting this to say, like, the Khalil Herbert is why I go back to that. Is like, what if they're like, hey, you know what? He's more effective on 10 to 14 touches versus 15 to 20. And I'm just saying that, like, that could be the concern. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I just wonder if it's not going to be very close. The upside, of course, is with Carter and everything you said about James Robinson. If James Robinson is really like, this is so we're learning that the Achilles as we go along is like, now it's not the end of your career, but maybe it's the end of the back half of the season you come back to. Like, you start off fine, and then a few weeks and months later, it's like you start to go down because it's just worn out. I don't know.
All right, so the actual running back rankings for week number 8, I mentioned Michael Carter comes in at number 24. The top 20, number 1, Saquon Barkley continues to just do good work for us in the fantasy game. Chubb, Henry, Josh Jacobs, number 4. Nice matchup for him this week against them Saints, who are terrible on defense.
Does it matter?
No, it doesn't. But like the Saints have been sneakily like the worst defense in the league over the past month or so. Jonathan Taylor, I have at number 5. We can talk about that a little bit, but it's not like you're benching Jonathan Taylor. Dalvin Cook, Ken Walker, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon. Leonard Fournette down to number 11 on Thursday Night Football. Damian Pierce, Miles Sanders, Michael Carter, Devin Singletary, David Montgomery, Zeke, Mostert, Swift, who I keep putting him in the rankings and he keeps not playing, but maybe he'll be back this week. I have at number 19, Aaron Jones, and then I have James Conner, Travis Etienne, Tony Pollard, Najee Harris, and Ramondre Stevenson. That is the top 25. Where do you want to go with this? What is the outlook for Jonathan Taylor the rest of the season? Because they've made the quarterback switch now. Edinger is in, Matt Ryan is out, and the one thing with Edinger is that you're going to get a bit more of I am a more mobile quarterback than Matt Ryan at this point of his career, but bringing that dimension to that offense, because it's funny that we talked about the Colts the past few years. That defensive line and pass rush is really good. That offensive line is so solid. You can put anyone back there. Well, their offensive line and defensive line suck now, so they need a bit of a more mobile quarterback to extend these drives. Like the Matt Ryan, outside of the Alec Pierce pass to cost me my Jacksonville bet 2 weeks ago, he's throwing the ball 8 yards every single time. And he's trying to get it out as quickly as possible because he has no time. It's just not helping anyone. It's just bringing everyone up to the line of scrimmage. They can just smother Jonathan Taylor immediately, at least with a mobile quarterback, whether he's good or bad. It seems like he'll be able to extend a play or two.
And so what I'll draw the comparison to is Jacoby Brissett. And you're looking at somebody who throws short. Likely, if we're hoping for the best from Ellinger, is that he's pretty accurate in doing so. So you got the short to intermediate passing game, slightly mobile. We're not talking even Daniel Jones level, but slightly in the fact that I think that what did Brissett have almost 150 yards so far this season, but mobile enough, to your point, to extend some plays, to just give that added dimension of maybe a little bit of a threat, kind of Trevor Lawrence mobile. But I go back to Brissett because the comparisons for me is that I think best case scenario, Ellinger is Brissett. And I know that doesn't sound like a very high bar, but I don't think there's a very high bar for Ellinger. I hope I'm wrong about him because I always say that. If I'm downplaying a player, I always hope I'm wrong and they're better in their career. But I think that's what you're looking for. So is it better for Jonathan Taylor? Maybe a little bit. The checkdowns, probably a little bit more, especially last week, even with Matt Ryan. But the problem here is Ellinger, I don't think is going to throw 40 times a game like Matt Ryan was. And that's just pure, and that's the problem. That's the pure volume there. So you have the Brissett volume problem, whereas what if Nyheim Hines Nyheim Hines has kind of been up and down in his pass catching role this year, but if let's say he maintains with Ellinger and he gets his 4, 5, 6 targets a week, well, that's fine if it was Matt Ryan throwing 40 times, but with Ellinger, it might now be 2 or 3 targets. We might be pushing towards Jonathan Taylor being Nick Chubb, and that's a great scenario as a low-end RB1, but it's not what you want from Taylor, and that's, again, hoping what your biggest issue is. The offense is struggling because of the offensive line, because of this it's been a mess in general. But I'd say Brissett Browns is what we're hoping for Ellinger and this whole situation with the Colts and Jonathan Taylor.
Okay, Christian McCaffrey at number 9. I think that McCaffrey is going to end up being ranked back at number 1 or 2 in a few weeks here, but I'm still not sure how much he's going to play even in week 2 of his 49ers experience. Is it going to be 60% of the snaps? Is it going to be 40% of the snaps? Because he was down at 30. Yeah, what do you play, 8 snaps, 16 snaps, something crazy like that in his first game, which is great for a guy who played, got traded 2 days before, but we're still another week out. I don't think it's time for him to be unleashed as the bell cow, but you could see in that offense how good he's going to be.
He could. And, again, you're playing everybody inside the top 10, so who the hell cares? But I'd rank him a little bit higher. I do think you could see a double and then some increase on a snap percentage. The bigger thing, and I said this on All in Football with Meany yesterday, is everybody's like, oh my God, what if he doesn't get the targets? What if, he's going from 5, 6, 7 a game, and what if he gets 2 or 3? And here's my pushback real quick on that one. We don't expect that, but let's say, fine, McCaffrey gets 2 targets a game. Guess what? Who the flipping hell cares? It's the 49ers, and we just saw Elijah Mitchell rip off 20, 21, 27, 27, 21, 24 carries last year while Debo was doing his thing in the backfield because, you know what? Shanahan with Garoppolo with the same offense. Granted, I think Kittle was hurt by that point. But even if Shanahan pulls his roles and everybody has a role and he doesn't want Christian McCaffrey used exclusively in the passing game and he sprinkles in somebody else, who cares? McCaffrey's still going to get 20 touches a game. So one way or another, he's getting towards it. And if you wanted to play McCaffrey over Alvin Kamara, you're right, still getting the use. He still can't find the end zone with that offense.
Stupid Taysom Hill.
I put him as a buy low again this week because of exactly what you said last week. He is actually top 20 in yards, top fit 10 or 15 in like rushes, receptions, and he's like top 5 in receiving yards for running backs. All these top, and he's there with missing the game, and he's in all those range, and yet he can't get an effing touchdown. So yeah, if you want to put McCaffrey a little bit higher, I think it could be a little bit better. But that's certainly fine. The person I wanted to push up is we still haven't gotten to the person we want to push up.
Well, go ahead, push him up, whoever it might be. Is it Travis Etienne?
No, it's not.
Because I don't like this.
It's Raheem Mostert.
Okay, but
it's Raheem. Against the Lions, he is just.
I love it too. I am
monopolizing that backfield.
I know, but at the most inopportune times, they love using Chase Edmonds for literally no reason.
But it's really gone downhill the past three. Like, what has he got? 10, 15, and 20 points the last 3 games, and then before that, I think he's got one single-digit performance over the last 4 games, and it was like 9 points. Yes, of course, Chase Edmonds could vulture a touchdown, but Mostert over Singletary is probably where I would go.
But why are we going over Singletary? Singletary's all of a sudden, like, for the past month, playing like 75% of the snaps in the Bills' offense. He's been great.
Because I will say, I know, and he has been, but Mostert's been great for the past month, and even with Chase Edmonds. And here's the one thing I will say, like, I'm not saying definitively it's going to happen, and I'm playing Singletary, but what do we just see coming out of the bye? You got to remember, sometimes these teams, once we get 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks into the season and you have your bye, that rookie starts to show up a little bit more. I'm not that scared of James Cook.
Oh, you're
it's
terrified of James Cook, are we?
No, I'm terrified that the Bills bring Singletary back and bring him back to, like, what was it, week 2 or 3 where Zach Moss got all that run and we were just sitting there like, what the hell? We're doing the Zach Moss thing again? Like, it's for everybody that's concerned about Shanahan and the 49ers all the time, every single year. I'm more concerned about the Bills just any given week being all of a sudden like, yeah, that was fun giving Singletary, 80% of the workload. And he was great, but not this week.
Yeah, I mean, the case, if you wanted to play Cook or Moss this week, is that the Bills are 11-point favorites at home. And if this game ends
Which should be good for Cook.
It should be good for Cook, because if it ends up in a rep, then he's going to start playing. But all the games that I thought were going to be
I'm not making that case.
All the games that I thought were going to be a rout this weekend, the team that was an underdog by 12 points won. So you never know with this stuff.
I mean, of course. I mean, the Bears just waxed the Patriots in New England. So, yeah. What are you going to do? Football, man.
What do you make of ETN now the rest of the season? I just don't like this matchup in London against Denver. I think that he'll be fine. I have him at number 22 because I do think his upside is squashed a little bit. And for a guy who was super hyped about his pass catching, he sucks in the passing game. He drops every pass they throw to him.
Well, so here's the thing. Let's also talk about his coach. It's Doug Peterson. And I've mentioned before, now this is coming from somebody who said that Doug Peterson will turn to a bell cow, but I'm putting that in quotes if you're just listening and not watching the video, because even when he had Miles Sanders that 1 year, it wasn't like 80%. It wasn't Mike Tomlin bell cow. It wasn't 75, but he'll lean on somebody 60, 65% of the time. That's what he should do with Travis Etienne, or what we expect him to do with Travis Etienne. And that's what he has been doing. The Snoop Connor thing, getting into the mix. Everybody's talking about JaMychal Hasty. JaMychal Hasty's a pass catcher. JaMychal Hasty is going to get blown up if somebody hits him too hard. So I don't expect Hasty to eat too much into it, but to your point about Etienne in the passing game, he's still good at the passing game. He just needs to catch the ball more frequently. I think Etienne will eat in a few snaps every single week, but when I put it in the waiver column, I said, but I'm not saying that to pick up Hasty. What my concern is that Snoop Connor absorbs the James Robinson role, and I'm not that afraid of it. Travis Etienne was getting goal line touches. I think Etienne is definitively a top 20 running back going forward. If we sat here, you bring up the Denver matchup, and yes, that's concerning. If we want to sit here and argue versus Zeke or Connor or something like that, we could do it, but I'm not going to do it. Like, if you want to push back, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not going to push back that hard. Top 20 going forward, but I wouldn't put it in the fact, like, don't think all of a sudden you have an RB1 on your hands, and this is where I'm going. If so, and if there are people in your league, because I tweeted this out yesterday, Pat, and I said, Etienne.
Did you do anything besides be on Twitter yesterday?
No, well, Monday's a lot of stats and stuff like that, and we had all these trades. I'm referencing to say this. It's just because the person responding, I'm not saying it because of me. So I said Etienne doesn't need 20 touches. The comparison I made in this preseason when I called him a breakout is Austin Eckler. He can do it with 14 to 16 touches a game. And this is the response. This is why, Pat. One of the first responses I got back was Etienne's going to outperform Austin Eckler. So there you go. You could sell high to some wackadoodles in your league.
Okay. Yes. Based on that conversation, yes. I think just normally just be happy that you now have ETN. He's in a more solid role. James Robinson won't be stealing.
No,
his
but
goal
do you
line
think he's
touches
top
at the
10
back.
rest of the year?
No, but he's probably top 15, just based on the amount of like full-time running backs that we have. And I'm calling him a full-time that he'll be like 65 to 70% of the snaps in that backfield.
Yeah, and we've had other running backs that have had these kind of opportunities and have improved a little bit or even just maintain. And my point was, if somebody's going to go crazy in your league, float him out there, see what you can get. This is something you walk into. Like Ken Walker, all right, sure, you traded him as an RB1 value, and he's been an RB1 value, but that's the point. Is like you're getting peak value even if he continues to be so. Like even if ETN's a fringe RB1 the rest of the way, I mean, you're still net neutral. You're likely to get more value back if he falters at all.
Sure, but like, what do you trade him for? I guess would be the thing. Like, what's a
Help.
Okay, help. But like, what's a name that you can target? Like, let's
Kamara.
Say okay,
Kamara straight up.
Yeah, okay, then yes, obviously you do that.
But I'm telling you, there's like that perception. Like I judge a lot of my buys and sells on people's comments in the waiver column usually on Tuesday, and then like some of that stuff on Twitter, and like that's where I get it because that's the crowd. It's the crowd sourcing, kind of seeing where people are standing on this. And you could probably in most leagues get Kamara straight up right now for ETN.
21 through 30. I mentioned this off the top. Now we can go 26 through 30. There's some names in here who are actually pretty good. Connor, ETN, Pollard, Najee Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, 21 through 25. 26 is Darrell Henderson, A.J. Dillon, Jamal Williams, Donta Foreman, and then your guy, Tyler Algier, finally scored a touchdown last week. Good for him. What a hero. Brian Robinson.
dropped him.
Brian Robinson at 31, Gus Edwards at 32, Kareem Hunt, Naheem Hines, Latavius Murray, Rashad White, Melvin Gordon, Eno Benjamin. So the first one, Connor over Benjamin. I mean, Connor was a game time decision 10 days ago. I'm guessing he's playing this week against the Vikings.
Question mark? Should be. We think
Should be.
so.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if he is, he's the one that you want to play, not Eno Benjamin.
Yes. 100%.
Okay. Ramondre at 25. I don't think that we see a disparity between him and Harris like we saw on Monday night again. That's me. Maybe I'm wrong on that. And if that's the case, Ramondre should be way higher.
And I agree with you. I think the fact that Harris got, it wasn't a ton, but that he got as much as he did, and then even the goal line work coming back when every report was multiple weeks and then wasn't even practicing until late in the week. I'm with you. I think you're looking at a bigger split going forward. And the biggest concern is any given week with the Patriots, it might be 70-30 Harris and then 70-30 Stevenson and then a complete 50-50 split. So where you have Stevenson is fair. I can't believe, are you going to bring it up? Are you going to make me ask the question? How the flipping hell do you have him at 32?
Gus Edwards? Well, I mean, he was.
Yes.
Listen, they were still using a 3-man committee. He's going to get the goal line work in this game against Tampa. Tampa's run defense. Listen, it's not Tampa. Tampa
not
run
good this year.
I mean, it's better than the Ravens' run defense. It was really funny. I smashed the Nick Chubb rushing prop last week. It was down to 71 somehow. And I just looked at it. I was like, Baltimore's run defense isn't very good. They just happen to be winning most of the game, so no one ever runs against them. But if a team does commit to running against them, they can't stop them. Like, that's a bad run defense. So, listen, the Bucs are like, they're not dominant. They're not the best run defense in the league. They're like the 12th best run defense in the league. I'm not too concerned about that. It's just the rushing touchdowns. The issue right now with Gus, and I don't know where his knee is at. Obviously, it's good enough to get the plurality of the touches, but he wasn't playing the majority of the snaps back there. He was second on the Ravens. You still have to account for Lamar. Justice Hill putting the ball on the ground probably launches him into the sun, so that's good news. But Drake hasn't gone away. The one solid thing you have with Edwards is that he is their goal line back. And we've seen this over the past 3 years. Lamar is going to steal touchdowns. Patrick Ricard is going to steal touchdowns. That Josh Oliver guy is going to steal touchdowns from all the other running backs. But when Edwards is in the game, he touches the ball at the goal line and scores their touchdowns. So there's that part of it. It's just, if he doesn't score, he has like 3 points.
No, I mean, like, look, he had as many carries as Hill and Drake combined. It was 16 and 16 for those guys, and he still had 60-ish yards. I know it was like a lot of sixes in there. So it was 60-something yards. It's like, that's why, like, I get everything you're saying, but I'll also push back on the Buccaneers. The reason they're 12th or 10th or somewhere in around there, you're right, they're like in the teens, but that's because they were so high up before the last 3 games when Kansas City went bonkers on them. And then look at what Carolina just did. The freaking Carolina Panthers, like that backfield of Hubbard and Donta Foreman destroyed them. And then 2 weeks ago, they gave up a decent game to some pretty poor running backs. So I'm looking at this and saying, you know what, the Buccaneers, no, they're not trash on defense. They're not trash in the run game. They're not down by the Browns, the Giants. You brought it up with the Ravens, but I don't fear them at all at this point. To the fact that if you're going to tell me first game back 16 carries for Gus Edwards, and you're telling me 15 is probably his floor in this matchup, I'm going to take Gus Edwards over friggin' Darrell Henderson.
Okay.
At this point,
Would you play?
I would even play him over Najee Harris.
That's what I was going to ask. Would you play him over Tony Pollard then? Because Pollard's in like kind of the same scenario. Pollard's in the same situation. Pollard's better, but he's not getting any of the goal line touches. Those belong to Zeke.
So that's the interesting thing is his snap percentage was higher than Zeke last week,
he was in. But we saw a bunch of plays, especially inside the 5-yard line, where they were both on the field at the same time. And maybe it's coming for Pollard, but all he was used for in these goal line packages was pure decoy, and it was just turn around, hand it off to Zeke, touchdown.
And that's I was about to say is he was getting snaps inside the 10. He wasn't getting touches inside the 10, which is a big important thing for us. And so Pollard, and it's against the Bears. And we just saw Stevenson and Harris do fine. It doesn't matter. So I think I'd still lean Pollard and then I would go Pollard, Edwards, Harris. Yeah. I see, but Stevenson, I still kind of, he's in there. I'd probably put Stevenson in front of Harris anyway.
Well, how much can we bank on
Philly? I don't like that defense.
Well, it's not Philly as much as how much can we bank on this passing game work from Stevenson? Because like even if he has no touches on the ground, if he's getting 9 targets a game, well then he's quite valuable.
Yeah, he is. So I think you can bank on it most weeks, but this could be a game where they rebound and the Jets go sideways because that's. I just don't trust what the Jets are going to do any given week. I don't know which version of the Jets I'm going to get. So that's really what it comes down to. So I think it deserves I think they're in a tier together. You know, the other one I would drop completely out of this conversation, just gone, is A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon's down in the 30s at this point. All of a sudden they're just not using him this year. Past couple weeks,
he's at 28. So when you say drop him into the 30s,
I know, but I would rather use the second Jamal Williams. I'd rather use Deonta Foreman.
Would you rather use Robinson?
Yes.
Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt's been remarkably consistent this year. That was his first really big game.
I'll put him at 33, one spot above Naheem Hines. Latavius Murray is down there too. Murray's probably the better player.
That's where he is at this point.
Yeah, Murray's probably the better player over Gordon with the Boone King out. Hey, they signed Marlon Mack this week too.
Oh my God, back in the Hall of Fame. Put him there.
Jamal Williams. Okay, let's say Swift is out. How high does Jamal Williams go against Miami?
That was a bit. Yeah, that was a bit of a matchup problem last week. So I'd say Jamal Williams would be
13, 14? Would you go Miles Sanders or Jamal Williams?
Philly against Pittsburgh.
I'd probably go Jamal Williams.
I'd probably go Jamal Williams.
Yeah, okay, so he'd be
Miles Sanders also been consistent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But so is Jamal Williams. I mean, outside
right. That's what I was going to say. Jamal
game.
Williams has the higher ceiling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Boston Scott's back, and the Eagles love to give Boston Scott those touchdown opportunities.
Hey, Boston Scott was back before the bye, which I didn't even notice. I think he was still banged up, so they didn't use him much. But
yeah,
I was shocked, because I assumed he was out because I didn't see anything from him. And then I looked, I was like, oh, Boston Scott actually played in this game. They just didn't use him at all. That's good news for Sanders. But is that injury related? Because that's why he was missing the time to begin with. Brad, what was it last week? What was the power rankings of the guys that we said to pick up? Was it Edwards, Foreman, then Williams? Those three?
I think so.
Foreman,
sounds about right.
Foreman looked great in that game, by the way.
Hubbard looked good for the first time in his career.
Well, now he's
in
dead.
That game.
Now he's dead, so you don't have to worry about him.
Is he?
I don't know. He left the game with an injury. I don't think he's playing this week.
No, I thought they said that it wasn't going to be that bad.
I think they said it wasn't going to be that bad, like as it pertains to missing the season, kind of thing.
Oh, really?
I think so. I mean, put it this way: the Carolina beat right now and not super active.
No, so Adam Schefter could have come back if needed.
Okay, so probably he is going to play. I liked Foreman more last week. He was better, although he was on the wrong side of the snap split earlier on in that game. Although to defy logic, Foreman was in on all the passing downs, and Hubbard wasn't. And I was like, I really would have thought that would have been the opposite way based on how these guys have been used.
Wait. Explain that to me, because Meany said the same thing to me yesterday, and I sat here and even talked about it. It's like I had Hubbard as the lead running back of like the short yards and stuff like that, and Foreman to be more of the pass catcher, and even brought up the Broncos from last year where I said that for me, I think that's the roles we're looking at. Hubbard more in the run game, Foreman more in the passing game. So I want Foreman for the upside, expecting Carolina to be down most games. And Meany said the same thing you did, where you guys were both thinking, why? I'm not saying like I'm right, you're wrong. I'm just curious why you guys were thinking the opposite of what I was.
I just had never seen Donta Foreman using the passing game before. Maybe it was just the situations that he was in on a team. At least when McCaffrey went down and Hubbard was in, like they tried to use Hubbard almost like they used Mike Davis that year too. Like when McCaffrey goes down, they kind of use them like McCaffrey. So maybe I got duped into thinking that they think that Chuba Hubbard is actually a good pass catcher. And just like looking back at Donta Foreman's history in terms of route running, in terms of receiving, they just don't use him. Okay. He's never been used.
I just want to make sure I wasn't. I know, and I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something. That was coming down to like how like I evaluated their skills, and I almost put that in quotes because I still don't think Hubbard's that good. And so I want to come to this game because if Hubbard is fine and active, I'm not saying this is just like the Jets situation. I don't want to try and predict Carolina being up in games but if I think they're going to be close at all, I would lean Hubbard over Foreman as higher in the ranks, but I still think Foreman has the higher ceiling any given week, even in a close game, just because of what he can do in the passing game. So against Atlanta, I would probably lean Hubbard, but I mean, it's Carolina. It could go sideways immediately. Thankfully, we already know that PJ Walker's starting because if Baker Mayfield's back under center, just don't start either one of them because he just ruins that offense.
I suppose that's true. I just put in Hubbard into the rankings because I had him out. I have him at number 36. I'm going to keep Foreman at number 29 for the moment. I think it just boils down to I won't be able to accurately predict their situation. So
the Carolina Panthers.
I'm just going to bank on the guy who's better. And I know, like, in my heart of hearts, Jake, I know Foreman is better than Hubbard because I don't think Hubbard's very good.
Of course. Of course. Can we get a prop bet on, like, the game time? Can we get under 3 hours on this game, by the way, Carolina versus Atlanta?
Watch Mariota throw, like, 60 times this week.
Oh, frick no. I was about to just curse on your show. I stopped myself.
What, 13 passes when you're losing by double digits isn't cutting it?
Oh my God! Like, can we get Ritter? But I don't even know if they would let him pass more.
Well, it's funny because if you look at like average yards, like yards per completion, Mariota leads the league. Like passing really hasn't been his problem. It's just he doesn't pass.
Well, and that's the other. I think there was another tweet out there about his time to throw, and he has so much time. It's because he moves around and stands there and thinks for 5 hours before he makes a pass. That's why.
Maybe no one can get open on that team either. Like maybe our ideas.
Oh yeah, Kyle Pitts and Drake London can't get open.
I mean, Kyle Pitts couldn't get open at all in that game. Every time they tried to throw to him, he was just covered. He had
that's
no.
Well, I mean, that's fair
no
because they're
separation.
triple covering him.
I mean, they weren't in the red zone against Cincinnati. There was one guy blanketed on top of him, no separation to speak of.
And that's why we got Demir Bird. And then before that, it's all Mehdi Zacchaeus. It's everybody else but Pitts and London.
Well, there we go. But Bird was wide open.
I know. That's what happens when you triple cover Kyle Pitts.
I guess so. Any more running backs you want to talk about?
Not really.
Okay.
No.
All right. Let's move to receiver then.
Okay.
Number one, this guy, Cooper Kupp. He's back. My fantasy team is doing much better.
Heard he's good.
Now that Cooper Kupp is back into the mix. My team last week got itself a win in my main league, my home league, Jake. And it was tough without Cooper Kupp's like 35 points a week. You just kind of bank on those. And when it's not there, it's like, how the hell?
I lost in flex because of it.
It's like,
I had no Cooper Kupp. I'm like, oh my God, my receivers suck.
Yeah, my receivers are terrible. Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, Diggs, Chase Adams, Tyreek, Amon-Ra, who he didn't even suffer a concussion. They wouldn't let him back in the game. That's where we're at now. So be very wary of that. But I have him back in at number 7 against the Dolphins. Evans, CeeDee Lamb, DeAndre Hopkins. At number 10, that will go into number 11, Amari Cooper, A.J. Brown, Chris Olave. That's assuming no Jarvis Landry, assuming no Michael Thomas again, because I don't know, maybe those guys retired or something and just didn't file their paperwork because we might never see them again. Who knows? Gabe Davis, Devonta Smith, Tyler Lockett. No DK in the rankings, by the way. Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman. Now that Sam Ehlinger is the quarterback, I don't know how that's really going to affect Pittman. It's funny with Pittman. I've kind of flipped on him. I was very anti-Pittman in the preseason. I just thought he was being drafted way too highly. And you know what? I was right, because Matt Ryan sucks. And that was mainly my point behind it. But he's had these games where he's been good. But when you're dealing with that inconsistency at quarterback, it's not going to be the wide receiver 11 that you think that you're going to get. So what do we project this Colts team looking like in the passing game, fantasy-wise? Be it Pierce, be it Campbell, be it Pittman, be it the tight ends. I think the tight ends drop off the face of the earth because Matt Ryan just loves throwing to the guy who's 6'10" because that's all he can do. And I think that we might see Pittman eventually get a boost out of this situation, at least in terms of consistency, because he was not being utilized downfield at all.
Well, here's the problem with that, though. You remember the Jacoby Brissett comparison I made is I don't expect Ehlinger to be heaving it downfield much more than Matt Ryan.
But it's not like Brissett doesn't throw downfield. I feel like that's a misnomer. Like, he does air it out. He's just not good at it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is I think the concern is that Ehlinger's not going to be that good at it. I hope the surprise here. So play it out. It's like we're speculating right now. I would rank Michael Pittman the highest. I think that given the recent usage and the style similarity of Ehlinger, as of right now, I think Paris Campbell gets the slight edge over Alec Pierce. I don't think the tight ends are completely done for. Actually, Ehlinger might even just go to them for the consistency in the short to intermediate game and bringing up the running back situation. The concern here we have is that what if he balances and throws to everybody, and even Michael Pittman, his highest target is 6, because Ehlinger's not going to throw it 40 times a game. What we can hope for the best case scenario is that he locks into one person, and hopefully being Michael Pittman as his primary option. His secondary option is everybody else combined, and then we're just like, you know what, it's fine. All we have to worry about is Michael Pittman. He's a top 20 wide receiver going forward, and we can just drop everybody else. I would not look to start anybody but Michael Pittman in the passing game this week. So I'm at least with you that. And the worst part about it, though, is it's such a good matchup against Washington, and that defense is just awful. So if you wanted to take a flyer, do you have Paris Campbell in front of Alec Pierce? Because that's how I would play it in the first week, given the similarity in styles.
I do. I have them back-to-back, actually, 44 and 45.
Okay, so I would lean Paris Campbell. And again, I don't have a ton of hope for the tight end situation. Also, because it's not even what you were saying. It's like Matt Ryan wants to go to him because they're so freaking tall. Is that because of Granson and Mo Alley Cox and Jelani Woods, and they have multiple. They've always, this is the Colts they've done, even going back to like Andrew Luck, is they have 8 tight ends, and it's who's going to be any tight end. So I'm not looking for one. I'm hoping we get clarity on Ehlinger and what he likes to do as a quarterback. That's my biggest thing. So I'm with you in Pittman in the 20 range. And I would play him over Deontay Johnson at this point. But I would actually, that was one I was going to bring up. I would actually play George Pickens over Deontay Johnson at this point, despite Deontay getting the volume.
He's getting the volume. I hate this matchup for George Pickens. I hate it against Philly.
Oh, because you think Slay's going to be on Pickens, not on Deontay?
Oh, yeah. Take away the athletic.
The best wide receiver?
Yeah, take away the best wide receiver and just let volume man pile up. Basically, I know that he's not catching a high volume of his passes at the moment, but Deontay Johnson just turned into like what everyone hated about Michael Thomas, which is good. I think like it's still fantasy viable.
Slant man?
Slant man. He runs outs as well, so let's not forget about that.
Well, no, you know, Michael Thomas was actually he's actually bottom 10 in running slants. That was such a misnomer. I pulled that up on the percentages, the routes that he runs are slants. That's such a terrible thing. But you're right in the fact of, and that's Deontay Johnson legitimately it's 50% on the nose. He's caught half the passes since Kenny Pickett took over. And yet he leads the team in targets.
Yeah, that's not good. And Pickett needs to make outrageous catches in order to actually have a reception. And this week it's going to be pretty tough, I think.
Which is crazy because Pickens and Claypool are both over 70% receiving with Pickett because he's making all those ridiculous catches.
Maybe that's what it is. They need to dust off the corpse of Brandon Lloyd and get him back on this team. It's like, sir, if you're wide open, we know you can't catch it, but let's throw you a ball that's 8 feet out of bounds and see if you can keep your feet in bounds. Okay, we can do that. Brandon Lloyd was the king of that.
So you're going to tell me they're going to sign Odell Beckham just for that very reason?
Just for that reason. Can you make highlight catches? You're on the team. And that's it. We got a guy for you to catch the ball. But so I got Deontay at 21. That might be too high. You can talk me into dropping him down, no problem. Higgins. Did Taylor Heineke save Terry McLaurin? He's back up to 23.
Yes. I said it wasn't a downgrade or it wasn't an upgrade to Carson Wentz.
Well, for Terry McLaurin, I mean, let's be real here. How much of that game did you watch? Because if you did watch, you can see that Heineke was absolute dog shit.
No, but he's also this
horrible.
You know what Heineke is? Look, he's not for this team. Like whatever, he's not that big of a downgrade because Wentz isn't that much of an upgrade because they're too similar in the fact of this is what I said. Just for the same reason for fantasy, we were sitting here on this show, Pat, talking about we like Carson Wentz for fantasy because he's throwing interceptions. We like Jameis Winston for fantasy when he threw 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions when he finishes a quarterback 3 because it was great for fantasy. Tyler Heineke is reckless as hell. He does every single play 100% out of his mind. But that's why I like him for fantasy. That's why he's entertaining. That's why I like Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel can have some value again. And hopefully John Dawson comes back and gives him a red zone threat that he can rely on just as much as McLaurin. But this is good for fantasy. Heineke is fun.
He's good for McLaurin. He wasn't really good for Samuel at all. He was good for Samuel in the fact that they were like, why don't we just rush with Curtis Samuel? How about we try that instead of throwing to him? And I was like, that's not helping me out at all. Come on, what are we doing here? But so I got McLaurin at 23, Christian Kirk. I have Lazard at 25, assuming he plays. He exited the game last week as well. Brendan Cooks, Jacoby Myers. I don't know what I have Mac Jones starting in my rankings, so take that for what it's worth. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. I have Myers at 27, Curtis Samuel, Rashad Bateman, Jerry Jeudy at number 30, Wendell at number 31, Ayuk, Sutton, Renfro, Pickens, Rondell Moore, Tyler Boyd, Adam Thielen, DJ Moore, Drake London. You're going to say that DJ Moore should be up there, but like, hey, why don't you have more than one good game and then we can talk about that?
I will say our friend Rich Rebar tweeted this out on Monday, and DJ Moore without Christian McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson, not a huge sample for the career to this point, but the target volume and reception is absurd, and it's actually even better just without Christian McCaffrey when Christian McCaffrey has been hurt. So I will argue higher, yeah, but I'm not gonna go crazy. I would still have him around Bateman and Wan'Dale Robinson. I would definitely not push him inside the top 25, but watch him finish as like wide receiver 5 this week because of that.
Honestly, everyone from, I think you can kind of make like a line right after McLaurin. Christian Kirk's kind of on an island by himself. Then you have like Lazard down to, probably Romeo Doubs. They're all like the same guy.
No. Dobbs is just a 0 at this point.
Wow,
he's been a 0 even before he got hurt.
He
had a 0.
He didn't have a 0. He put the ball on the ground on the opening drive. Then Rodgers refused to throw to him again.
Yeah, but the week before that, he didn't do anything.
He had 2 really bad drops, and then Aaron Rodgers stopped throwing to him. The first thing they tried to do last week was get the ball in his hands. Boom, plopped it on the ground. The first thing they're going to do this week is try to get the ball in his hands again. If he puts it on the ground, he's going to have another 0. But they still want to add. No. Early in these games, they're trying to get him involved, and he's putting it on the ground. And every Green Bay receiver is doing exactly the same thing. Lazard had 2 drops. I didn't even see Sammy Watkins on the field, so I can't really speak to what he's.
He was actually out there almost 40 snaps.
No, I know, but I didn't see him do anything.
That's because nobody's doing anything for the Packers. I'm like Dobbs. I said it was droppable 2 weeks ago. I said it again last week. I'm done. I've been done with Dobbs. And of course, it's against Buffalo, so watch him have 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Okay, I mean, if Dobbs is droppable, is Garrett Wilson droppable too? Because he's terrible.
No, only because of the Corey Davis injury.
He had one good game. That's it, and he's been horrible since Zach Wilson came back.
There you go. It's the Zach Wilson problem. So
sure,
yes, Garrett Wilson.
That's not going away.
No.
Benching
but
Zach
Corey
Wilson.
Davis might have gone away. Corey Davis might have gone away. That's the issue. So if there is no Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson is still out there in the most, still getting the volume second, depending, like either first or second most when Corey Davis is out there. So if there's no Corey Davis, just by pure volume, we can play Garrett Wilson. Where you have him, I wouldn't move him up. I don't think you don't have Corey Davis in your rankings, right?
I don't know. And I was thinking about ranking Elijah Moore over Garrett Wilson because I think that Elijah Moore actually stands to benefit from no Corey Davis rather than Garrett Wilson.
No, so if Corey Davis is even playing, there are 3 rookie wide receivers, 3 that are rosterable / even startable at this point. There's one obvious one, and then George Pickens and Wan'Dale Robinson. Yeah, Pickens and Wan'Dale Robinson.
Who's the obvious one? Olave?
Chris Olave.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
it. All the rest of them? No. Dobbs, Wilson, London. All the rest of them. London? Nope. Drop them. Done. Like the only one is Traylon Burks because you can stash him on IR.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go.
And Dotson too, IR.
I was gonna say I wouldn't go crazy being like, hey, let's drop Drake London. You know who I want to have on my team when he comes back? Traylon Burks and his 2 targets a game.
It's always relative, but London's he's not a
Traylon
definitive
Burks
hold
sucks.
at this point.
No, I'm with you. There's most definitely be better options on your waiver wire than Drake London right now. That's why you probably shouldn't be playing him. But I mean, then you're into this like Claypool and Paris Campbell, Marquise Goodwin. It's like 2013 all over again.
Freaking Marquise Goodwin, Ray McLeod, and who was the other jabroni catching touchdowns and annoying the living hell of us in those 4 o'clock games were so infuriating last week.
All right, then you had the Texans game. You had Alanis Dorsett, who I didn't realize was on the Texans. You had Chris Moop.
Oh, Philip Dorsett, yeah, legitimately like
Chris Moop scored a touchdown.
I knew he was on the roster, but he hasn't even been. Chris Moore, yeah, Moops, yeah. Philip Dorsett, I didn't even know he was active. Like that was the biggest thing because I didn't check the Houston Texans actives for 4 o'clock.
You're a Giants fan. Is it worth playing Darius Slayton for like those 2 sideline end zone targets he's going to get a week, and hopefully he comes down with one of them?
Where do you have him? He's in
46. I have him right one spot ahead of Marquise Goodwin, actually.
That's where he deserves to be. Same thing as if there's no Michael Thomas and no Jarvis Landry, the Hail Mary on Marquez Callaway in that same range because it's Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson's this year's Amon-Ra St. Brown, but the poor man's version. He's like wide receiver 3 because of the volume, and he's playing with Daniel Jones in the Giants offense because he's not going to see 12 targets a game. He's going to see the vast majority because he's almost 30% last week. Actually, in the 2 games since he's played, the highest by far a mile on the team target percentage is Wan'Dale Robinson, and that's why I said Amon-Ra St. Brown this year, just not with the wide receiver 1 ceiling, wide receiver 3. So the next one up is like you said, okay, maybe we hit a big play. Maybe we get a 40-yard reception. Maybe we get a touchdown. That's Marquez Callaway. That's Marquise Goodwin. That's everything. Isaiah McKenzie and Darnell Mooney. That's who he is. So,
I like that Wan'Dale Robinson is like discount rack Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like you're Amon-Ra St. Brown. You walk into the nice tailor. You get your cut. You look sharp walking out. It's off the rack Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, yeah. Give me a 42.
TJ Maxx.
Give me a 42 rag. That's like a bit. Yeah, he is TJ Maxx. Like, why is this one sleeve slightly longer than the other sleeve? It's good enough. $6. Who cares?
It's you bought the sweater. It's got the red dot.
Well, it's cashmere, so it still doesn't matter, I suppose.
It's cashmere.
It's cashmere. Is that a red dot?
Yeah.
No. Quarterbacks. Let's talk about these idiots because I have 3 names inside the top 10 that are pretty hilarious. I got Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. I still have Tom Brady at 5 because once you hear the other rest of the names, you're like, oh yeah, I suppose that makes sense. And Baltimore's defense sucks, so maybe Brady can turn it around. Then we go Geno, Derek Carr, Kyler, the Goof, and Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones is going to run like this, you have to play him.
You kind of have to. And like you said, if he's going to run like this, and what is he facing? The Seattle Seahawks defense. So run. I don't know. Like, I don't even know where to argue with anybody. I guess the one pushback you're going to get is, hey, it was indoors last week. Even with a bad matchup, he still expected better than 2 points for Jared Goff?
Yeah, I'm going back to the Goff well here. I just, listen, Miami's defense also stinks. So this could be a boat race type game.
You can only hope. God. And he's going to be out there to stream because everybody's pissed the hell off. I can tell you that much. I am too.
I'll be there. I'll take some Jared Goof. I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. Who would be because like I don't know if it was as soon as they were moving the ball like all right when St. Brown was in the game, as soon as he went out they couldn't do anything. And then
I would play Tua over him. Why do you have Tua all the way down to 16?
I mean, you kind of hit on it with Mostert, that I just think it's going to be a lot of Mostert in that game. Because people always ask me, like, how can you rank Waddle and Hill where you do and not have Tua
I get the same question.
Higher up? Yeah. It's like, because all of the volume goes to 2 guys. Like,
yeah,
those 2 guys can independently have really good games, and Tua cannot have a good game. Like that is,
yeah, but Tua could still have 280 and 3 touchdowns against. If
he could,
because you said it's a boat race.
You want to project him for 280 and 3 touchdowns? Be my guest and play him over everyone.
I didn't say everyone. Well, I was going to what you said. You're the one who said boat race, which in my mind, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but in my mind, boat race is both offenses are going. And that's why I was going for Tua here. If boat race, you just mean Miami just boat races them.
No.
And that's why you're playing Jared Goff.
Listen, I think this game is going to hit the over. I think the Lions are super live in this game. In order to win, you're going to get your big plays, but we've seen this concentration of the Dolphins offense. Once they get in close and don't score a long touchdown, they're running. And they're going to try to run it in. And that really takes away from the overall upside of Tua, unless he's scoring these deeper touchdowns. Where with Goff, yeah, we're going to see Jamal Williams get his obligatory carry from the 5-yard line, which he'll probably fumble and put onto the ground like last week. But they're all gas, no brakes when it comes to the passing game, and they're in one of these back and forth contests. Like they're going to go for every fourth down, they're going to pass on all those fourth downs, and I think that we're going to see more of Josh Reynolds. We'll see more of Khalif Raymond in this game. And is Jameson Williams coming back anytime soon? Because I thought he'd be back next week, but I still haven't heard anything.
No. Well, that's the thing is it's been the expected could he be back, and there's been very little news on if that's definitively happening. That's what I told everybody, like, stash, but there's no guarantee he's not back before week 12. It was just it was the estimated timeline. It's just they don't have really an idea on it. So if it's similar to you do, and you're like, all right, you convinced me. I'm gonna pull that. So all right, you convinced me. If it was my rankings and I had Tua at 9, I would pull him down to 13. I would still play Tua in front of Mariota, Stafford's, and his broken offense and arm, and Dalton and everything like that. Dalton might not even start. Dalton might not even finish the game. Slash.
See, look, I understand that he might not start. I don't know that as of right now. Do you want me to not put a fucking Saints quarterback in the rankings?
No, but he might not finish the game either. That's a risk.
Whatever. He was my top streamer last week. He scored 30 fantasy points.
You're lucky he stayed in that game because that was not good.
Great. Well, he did, and he threw 4 touchdowns. Because when your defense is
that tight ends.
When your defense is that bad, you're going to be chucking the entire time.
Okay.
Tight ends, Andrews, number 1. But you can see the volatility of tight end with Mark Andrews last week. Higbee is back. He's number 2. Goddard, Ertz, Kittle. Hawkinson, Njoku, who might not play, so keep an eye on him. Taysom Hill.
2 to 5 weeks.
Oh, it's 2 to. Oh, so he's done.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 to 5.
All right. Let's take him out of the rankings then. So no longer at number 7, David Njoku. Would you play Harrison Bryant? I guess that's the question.
I play Harrison Bryant over Kyle Pitts at this point.
Oh, really? No. I have Kyle Pitts at 14. That's behind Schultz, ahead of Juwan Johnson, because I don't know about the Adam Troutman injury. And a lot of Juwan Johnson's good work on Thursday night was because of Troutman not being in there. He was in for the extra snaps. Yes, he's always been running more routes, but he loses snaps to Troutman when Troutman is active, because Juwan Johnson is essentially a receiver and not a blocker. And he is also affected by no Jarvis Landry, no Michael Thomas. That's good news for Juwan Johnson. So we'll have to wait and see with that. But you would actually play Harrison Bryant over Kyle Pitts? I wouldn't.
Kyle Pitts has 4 games of 3 points or less.
Sure, but so does Harrison Bryant. In fairness, so does Harrison Bryant.
Harrison Bryant's been splitting time with David and Njoku.
Hey, listen, Kyle Pitts is
done with Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts is splitting time with Cole Pruitt and Parker Hesse.
And splitting time with 13 targets a game.
Yeah, it's not great.
30% target share equals 4 targets. Congratulations.
I mean, I have him at 14. That's why I'm going to keep him. So I still have I have Freiermuth at 9. I don't know if Waller is playing or not. I have him in the rankings as of right now. Freiermuth at 9, Dulcich at 10, Cade Otton at 11, Hayden Hurst at 12, Schultz at 13, then Kyle Pitts. And then Tanner Hudson's, I think, somewhat interesting. Harrison Bryant is somewhat interesting. Obviously, Foster Moreau would be interesting slightly if Darren Waller sits out again. But these are the people that I'm with this week.
Yeah. All right.
Defenses. You want to talk about them? Dallas, number 1.
Real quick.
Yeah, Dallas, number 1.
Okay.
New England, Buffalo, Jacksonville, Denver. Good game for defenses there. Philly, Titans, Washington, San Francisco, Atlanta is the top 10. And then you can get real sneak. Washington, I think, is an objectively good play this week. They're getting a pass rush. They're going against a first-time starter in the NFL and the Colts' terrible offensive line and a guy who might try to extend plays. They're going to give up points, but that feels like turnover city to me.
It does. I actually thought they were a decent chance there for a flyer. And then I was looking for one. It could blow up because it could go crazy, but at the same time,
Vegas?
It's Jared Goff. Miami. And Jared Goff throwing 3 interceptions on his pace to throw 403 touchdowns. Like you always say, you can give up points, but you can also still be a good fantasy defense.
Sure. Where would you put Miami? I'll insert them in just for you.
I'd play them over Seattle. The Giants control the ball too much.
Okay.
Daniel Jones is actually not even fumbling anymore. Although he fell on his own fumble this time, finally.
It was just like the Bears. Every time they fumbled 5 times and fell on all 5 of their fumbles. Doesn't usually work out like that.
No.
Eventually, the other team snags the ball away. All right, that will do it. If you want to check out the rankings, they're down in the description. You can follow Jake on Twitter at AllInKid. Check out his rankings tonight, midnight, on theathletic.com. Got a sub, though. What's the code that you can use?
That's not. Just click on the rankings or the waiver article, and it just pops up for you. Just click the link after you check the link, Pat.
There you go. All right, I'm Pat Mayo. You can follow me at the PME. I'll be back with spread picks on Wednesday, best bets on Thursday, DraftKings on Friday, and a full rankings update and injury report on Saturday. So sub to Mayo Media on YouTube, or just subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast for all your fantasy football needs. I'm Pat Mayo. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!